Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Off the Sidelines. My name is Matthew Limberni.
And I'm Benedict Rhodes.
We hope all of you continue. We hope all of you are continuing to stay well during these tough times. Ben, have you been up to anything exciting lately?
Not really, just watching old sports, watching some current sports as we'll get to in a minute, but other than that, not a whole lot. What about you?
Yeah, same as you. Watching throwbacks, getting into NASCAR for some reason. I don't know where that came from, but yeah, I've been doing that. Um, yeah, that's all for me.
As I mentioned, live sports is starting to come back slowly but surely. A lot of soccer is the main sport coming back at the moment. I've been watching a lot of K League at the moment, as I've said on the show a couple of times. The Copper 90 YouTube channel showed another K League game this weekend with my new favorite team, Pohang Steelers, come up against Incheon United, and they won 4-1, so that was a pretty good start to the weekend, or end of the weekend rather, a Sunday morning. What about you, Matthew? Did you watch any soccer this weekend?
Yeah, I continue to watch the Bundesliga because I think it's been the third weekend now of games, if I'm not wrong. Uh, for example, I watched Bayern play. I think it was Dusseldorf on Saturday
Yeah.
when they beat up on them 5-0. And of course, the great Canadian Alphonso Davies scored a goal, which I mean he's probably one of the best Canadian players out there right now, or probably the best. Um, I also watched Dortmund on Sunday play almost a competitive match in the first half, at least looked like, because it was tied 0-0 going into the half, and then Dortmund broke out to score 6 goals and uh, have a 6-1 win against Paderborn. I think they're last place in the Bundesliga, but yeah, that's what I've been watching. Have you been watching any Bundesliga?
Yeah, I watched both of those games. I watched the 5-0 Bayern Munich game, as well as the 6-1 Dortmund game, and a couple others as well, but those are sort of the main two of the weekend. Bundesliga has been pretty exciting at the moment. Like I know last week I couldn't watch it unfortunately, but there's Bayern Munich versus Borussia Dortmund in their Klassiker, I think they call it, El Clasico in German. Then Bayern Munich won that game, which briefly extended their lead to 7 points at the top of the table. Would have been 1 point if Dortmund had managed to find a result or find a win. Then after the 5-0 win on Saturday, Bayern Munich were ahead by 10 points over Dortmund. But after that 6-1 win over Paderborn, you mentioned by Dortmund, Dortmund are back within 7 points again. Do you think, Matthew, that Borussia Dortmund have any chance left for this title with only a few games left, or do you think this is Bayern Munich's trophy?
Well, I think if I'm not wrong, like the season's like 4 weeks away from being complete. So I
Yeah,
think
six matches, I think.
6 matches. Yeah, Dortmund. I mean, right now Dortmund has. I mean, after Tuesday's match, now that Bayern has a 7 point, uh, has a 7 point lead against Dortmund for the top of the Bundesliga. I think that the chances are slimmer now. I mean, if they won on Tuesday or at least got a point, I maybe would have given them a chance. But now I think that they're. I think that Bayern would probably walk away with. I think their eighth straight title, if I'm not wrong,
I
this
think so.
season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that. I think that Dortmund has a slim chance now of winning. What about you?
Yeah, I think again, I think this is last week as well. I think this is Bayern Munich's trophy to lose. I think they're just too good. And I think if Dortmund had not gotten all 3 points against Paderborn, like it was, you mentioned it was 0-0 going into halftime. If that had stayed that way, or Paderborn had managed to hold out a draw, I think the title would have been over right there and then. Even if not mathematically, but just like Bayern Munich's not going to lose that many games down the stretch. So yeah, I think this is Bayern Munich's trophy to lose, really.
Yeah, that Dortmund and Paderborn match, I was just gonna say it was almost gonna be an upset in the first half, but I
Yeah.
mean, at least for what I thought, because it was 0-0, as I mentioned, going to halftime. I mean, Dortmund looked like they were gonna be in trouble, and then they exploded for 6 goals in the second half, which was Dortmund being Dortmund, I guess.
Yeah, especially without their main striker Erling Haaland, like he wasn't even playing. I think he scored 11 goals in 10 games, I think, or 12 and 11 or something crazy. And they still had Jadon Sancho who scored a hat trick, which was pretty exciting. But yeah, if they had Haaland, that game could have been 8 or 9-0 potentially. Like, I think if with him in the lineup, that game wouldn't have even been 0-0 going at halftime, I don't think.
Yeah, also the third to fifth place teams, like it's sort of close too, because Dortmund has a 4 point lead over third place Borussia Gladbach, I think that's
Yeah.
how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
And also Leverkusen and Leipzig. So it's a very close run there. And I think, if I'm not wrong, maybe correct me, there's like a spot for, I think it's either Champions or Europa League if they get second or third.
Yeah, I think it's top 4 make Champions League, and then next couple make Europa League. So I think Dortmund have secured a Champions League spot. I don't think that's going to be in doubt, but I honestly don't think the title's going to be within range for them this year. Especially
Yeah,
if
it's
they,
on.
especially if they lose, and going into next season, of course, you think, okay, well, they set themselves up to get better for next season. But then you have the rumor that Jadon Sancho, who, like I said, scored a hat trick on Sunday, rumored that he's going to the Premier League or La Liga, but more likely the Premier League, apparently. I think Manchester United have been sort of the front runner for him. So if he leaves, it'll be interesting to see how Borussia Dortmund sort of recover. Even though they have a pretty deep team, that'll be a pretty major loss.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. That would be a huge loss for them.
And speaking of the Premier League, we now have a tentative date for them to return. As you can see behind me here, I'm at the Emirates Stadium here in London, home of Arsenal. Waiting for the first game to be played. I think Arsenal's scheduled to play in one of those first games because they had a game in hand over the rest of the league. So 17th of June is the day penciled in, but that of course can change and might have to change if there's any more positive tests from players, for example, for this COVID-19. But June 17th is the penciled in date. A lot of teams at the bottom of the table don't like this because they're arguing at least that relegation should be scrapped because it's not fair to some of them to be relegated, especially if the second tier championship doesn't start. Although news out of England this morning is that they're going to start on June 20th. And I think the main concern is if the season does start again on June 17th, but then has to be ended prematurely again at another point, they're arguing that relegation wouldn't be fair, especially if games aren't played, because they won't have a fair fighting chance to get out of that bottom three. So what do you think, Matthew? Do you think it was the right time to come back, or do you think they maybe should wait a little bit longer still?
Well, I mean, I've looked at the Bundesliga playing for the past couple of weeks, and it seems like it's been working there. I'm not really aware of like the COVID situation in Britain. I don't know if it's like eased yet, but I think that having it right now without fans, of course, would be, or having a June 17th start at that time would be the right decision. I think that a lot of soccer players in Europe just want to get out on the field and start playing games, even for the relegated teams that are in the relegation spot right now. That, I mean, don't really have a, well, they have to play for relegation, of course, but they don't have really anything else to prove, really. So I think having it start June 17th would be the right decision. Although if there is a big spread of COVID cases, then definitely that would have to, I feel like that would have to be changed. I think that over the weekend I heard that there was zero positive tests that came back. I can't remember when.
There's zero
Like
from the new batch,
the new batch of
the new
cases.
round of testing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if that continues, or if it stays below like 5, 10, or something like that, I think that it would be right for them to start June 17th. But yeah, what about you? What do you think?
I think it's they'll have to follow the Bundesliga, and the Bundesliga and K League have done an amazing job at proving, so showing how this needs to be done. Especially Bundesliga, they've been really impressive how well they've been doing it. So I think if you do it properly, June 17th is a great day, but I also don't want them to rush back and have to pause it again, because that would just cause so many problems. So I think June 17th will hopefully be enough time to not only get teams playing and match fit, but also enough time to hopefully get players back and ready to play.
Yeah, I was also going to mention, like, I saw the scheduling, how they were going to schedule the games on the weekend. It's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, like one Friday, one Monday, and then of course the regular Saturday, Sunday matches. So I think that would be an exciting schedule for soccer fans to, more soccer content, I guess.
I think that schedule is fairly common, having like one on Friday and one on Monday. But I mean, if not every weekend, then they do have a lot of weekends. But that would definitely be good to have. I think I heard that no games would overlap each other as well. Like
Yeah.
like there'd be no simultaneous games, which I think is perfect for TV audiences. And I know they're going to be showing more games on TV than they originally planned to, so that'll be pretty exciting as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, like if COVID consistently goes down in Britain, then I think that would be right from the start on 17. Also, the team in the top of the Premier League, Liverpool, is seeking another Premier League title. Because Liverpool is concerned about having crowds out around their stadium celebrating another title, they might have to play their games at a neutral venue so fans don't congregate to celebrate. Oh, sorry, it's their first league title in decades. My bad. What do you think about this idea from Liverpool?
I don't think it was Liverpool's idea. I think it was more the government's idea and the Premier League's idea. I do understand the idea. I don't think it would just be Liverpool. I think any team in the league would probably have a similar sort of situation. With the Liverpool haven't won the title. I think 1989 was the last time they won the title. So they never won in the Premier League era as well. So it's the first Premier League title. Yeah, I don't know. I think it makes sense. It kind of sucks for the Liverpool players that they'll have to just sort of win the league and then just walk off and go back to the dressing room instead of trying to like have the big ceremony and fireworks and all the stuff that team would usually have. So that does kind of suck for them. But again, like this is a very strange situation in the world right now. So I think it makes sense for what's going on at the moment. What about you? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's right for them. I think it's the only right thing for them to do, play in a neutral venue, because of course we can't have crowds gathering together right now because that's how COVID is spreading. So I think that, yeah, definitely having it at a neutral venue would be better. I mean, I feel like if they were playing at Liverpool, like if they were clinching, say if they clinched the title at their home stadium, I think that it would be tough for like security and everything to like keep them away from the stadium or at least gathering together. But yeah, I think that having it in a different stadium other than I think it's Anfield Stadium if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I think having it other than there, having a game other than there, I should say, would be right for them.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken as well, I'm not sure if this has changed, but I think they could, if I'm not mistaken, win the title at Everton, which it shares is also in the city of Liverpool, of course. So I think if they have a chance of clinching the title at Goodison Park where Everton play, I think they're going to have to move from there too because it's walking distance from Anfield. So I think you're going to have to probably change that around as well. But yeah, I'll have to see how the numbers work and what's going on there. Or just don't have any kind of title celebration yet until you can have crowds again.
Yeah, that may be a different issue, but we'll have to see how it plays out in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and of course there are also a lot of players, of course, who don't want to come back and play because of the virus. We've heard N'Golo Kante at Chelsea. He's training by himself. He's still at the team training facilities, but he's just not training with the rest of his teammates because he doesn't want to risk getting the virus. So he's practicing by himself. A couple other players as well. Tyrone Mings at Aston Villa called the decision financially driven, and some pretty strong words. It makes sense, though, of course. And was upset that the players were the last to be consulted. And as well as a pair of club captains, West Ham's Mark Noble and Watford's Troy Deeney have both pushed for guarantees over player safety over the last few weeks. So Matthew, it's definitely a sticky situation. But do you think that you're going to see more players deciding not to train, not even just in soccer, but in any sport?
Yeah, well, I think they're making their own decision in the end. I think that it depends on them. They're deciding on their own if they want to be put out in a situation like what the Bundesliga and K League are in right now. I think that, yeah, I do understand that there are some players that maybe don't want to play right now because of the situation with COVID. I think also you have to think about like how the Premier League's going to have a plan to, like, if they have players that don't want to be involved in playing, how are they going to I don't know how are they going to work that out. I think that would be a concern, but I think that it's going to be depending on their decision if they want to go out and play.
Yeah,
What about you?
my guess is that the team will just play without them. Is my guess. If they don't want to play, someone else will. Whether it's someone who usually sits on the bench or an academy player might get his chance with the first team or whatever. I don't think that the league and the teams are going to wait for the players. But again, I also would like to hope that the league will be guaranteeing the player safety like Mark Noble and Troy Deeney are asking for. But like I said, it's a pretty sticky situation, but we'll just have to see how it pans out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they how they have a plan for players who don't want to be exposed like that.
Yeah.
But moving on from soccer, the NHL commissioner Gary Bettman made a surprise. Well, not really a surprise because we knew about the plans mostly, but he made an announcement last Tuesday in regards to the NHL return to play plan. So in that announcement, he mentioned that there will be 2 hub cities for when hockey returns to action. He didn't say the exact cities; they're still deciding on that. But he mentioned that one was going to be for the Eastern Conference teams, and one was going to be for the West teams. So that means that there would be 12 teams in each hub city. In regards to city choices, they have 10 hub cities in consideration, including 3 Canadian cities, those being Vancouver, Edmonton, and Toronto. And the American cities that he listed include Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Pittsburgh, and Minneapolis or St. Paul. He also mentioned that for the top 4 teams in each conference, they would have a bye to the round of 16, but they would have to play each other to determine seeding, which I think we've talked about in their recent plans. He also put out the qualifying round, which would have matchups 5 versus 12, 6 versus 11, 7 versus 10, and 8 versus 9. And then he also put out a plan for the phase return. So the next phase, of course, is phase 2. We're in phase 1 right now of the NHL return to play. He said it may begin in June, but it depends on the situation with with each city, if they're allowing small group workouts. We may not be able to see phase 3, which is training camps opening up until mid-July. And then, of course, phase 4 is the return to normal and playing games. What did you think about this announcement, Ben?
Well, there's also unpacked there. I guess we'll start with hub cities. That idea, we'll start with that, and then I'll move down to the phases. I don't think that there'll be a hub city in Canada, if I'm being honest. As much as I'd like there to be one, like maybe Edmonton or anywhere really, but as much as I would like that, I don't think we're going to see one in Canada, especially if you're going to have to bring players from overseas to America and then bring half those teams up to Canada. To me, that's just too many border crossings. You're going to have to quarantine 14 days twice. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So imagine if you just tell all the 7 Canadian teams to go down to the States and all the overseas players to meet them in the States. Makes a lot more sense to me than trying to get people across 2 borders. So I don't think we're going to see a team in Canada, but a hub in Canada, but I'm not really sure about that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that the closure of the borders, like playing a role in this decision for the NHL. I like you, I doubt that they're going to have a Canadian city. Although I know that the Alberta Premier sent out a letter to Justin Trudeau about Edmonton hosting games. But I mean, of course, there's the 14-day quarantine thing that the rule that's in place when you come to Canada. So I think that might be a concern for the NHL. And also, I think the U.S. would be in a better situation to host because I think the U.S. is allowing international players to come to the U.S. for sports reasons, like for the NHL in this situation. So I think that having it in 2 American cities would be better for the NHL than 2 Canadian. Of course, we don't want the situation to be worse in Canada somehow. But yeah, I think the 2 American cities would be the best decision for them. Which cities do you think the NHL should look at out of the 7 American, if we're not mentioning the Canadian? Which of the 7 American cities do you think the NHL should look at hosting?
I think if we're doing Eastern, two hubs, one with Eastern, one with Western, it makes sense to have one Eastern Conference team and one Western Conference team hosting. I know there's quite a few Western Conference teams listed there. Maybe Columbus and LA or something, or I'm not sure. But I think it makes sense to have obviously one from each conference hosting. Especially if that team is in the playoffs. Like I don't think the LA Kings are in the playoffs. So I don't know if it makes sense to put the LA Kings where I think maybe Vegas would make sense for the Western Conference. Yeah, I'll have to see. I think like I said like one from each conference, and I'm not really too sure beyond that.
Yeah, well, for me, I think, like, of course, they have to look at one Eastern and one Western. So I think that it would be right. Personally, I think it would be good for them to do Las Vegas for the Western Conference. And for the East, I think that, like you mentioned, there's not really a lot of Eastern teams. So I think it would be Pittsburgh would be the best decision for them. But I mean, that's what I think.
Also
But
depends on
yeah,
where they can get a lot of hotels. I think Las Vegas is just half of Las Vegas is hotels. So I think that'd be a good place to store hundreds of athletes and staff and whoever. I think Las Vegas makes a lot of sense.
yeah, that'd definitely be a great city for them to accommodate like players, staff, and trainers and all that. Um, yeah, and what about the qualifying round? What do you think about the qualifying round plan, or the whole playoff plan, I should say?
Yeah, overall, I like it. I think if you're going to expand the playoffs to 12 teams for some reason, this is the way to do it. I don't understand why they didn't just do the top 8 from each team, from each conference, like the way it was before. But I also understand that there were some teams that had a chance of making the playoffs still, and some probably would have made the playoffs still. So I do also understand that. So I think 12 teams in each conference is the fairest way to do it. Getting a lot of teams who might not have been a playoff team, of course, also making the playoffs, like the Montreal Canadiens, for example. Um, yeah, overall, I like the playoff format, and uh, I like the idea of having the qualifying round to sort of get rid of some of those lower teams potentially. What about you? What are your thoughts on the whole playoff system?
Yeah, I mean, like you, I think they could have stick to round of 16, but I guess this works too. I think they're also looking at, like, because there's a lot of big market teams like the Blackhawks, the Canadians, and the Rangers that were going to miss out on the playoffs. Of course, those are the big markets in the NHL, especially Chicago.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think it works for them, but it also depends on how many, like if it's going to be a best of 5 or 7. I think if I remember correctly, they said the conference finals and the Stanley Cup final would be a best of 7. So I don't think they've really laid out the first and second round yet, but it all depends on, like, having players like having players like play a good amount of games, like making sure they're not, it's competitive enough, I guess.
yeah. I also kind of like having some of those bigger You mentioned the bigger markets. I kind of like having some of them back in the playoffs if they weren't going to miss the playoffs. So, for example, like the Montreal Canadiens, if we get a Montreal Canadiens versus Toronto Maple Leafs matchup at some point, like that would be perfect for the NHL. Or I don't know, like any team really. But if you get this potential for some great rivalry games here, I think the Leafs are supposed to be the Blue Jackets in the first round.
Yes, yeah, they're playing the Blue Jackets in the first. They would play the Blue
Yeah.
Jackets.
Um, so I like the potential for some good playoff matchups. So in that sense, I think having some of these bigger market teams and a couple of and I think 3 original 6 teams as well join the playoffs. I think that's always nice to see.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully we'll be back sooner than later, but
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes. Also, besides the NHL talking about their return to play plan, they also outlined the 2020 NHL draft, how it would work. So, of course, the 7 teams who are out of which seasons are finished now and don't make the playoffs, and the 8 clubs also who are eliminated from the qualifying round would have a chance to win the number 1 pick. So that means that it would have 15 clubs having a chance at that, which would be interesting to see. And they also mentioned that the draft lottery would be conducted June 26th. What did you think about the draft plan, I should say?
Yeah, that's a lot of teams in contention for the number 1 pick. I think maybe should have just been the 7 who didn't make the playoffs personally. because those other 8 teams already got their little reward, their little bonus. So I do think it should have been just the 7 who didn't make the playoffs, but I don't know. I don't really dislike it, but I'm also not a huge fan of it. It doesn't really matter to me, to be honest. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind either, but I think that when you have I think the 7 teams would have a better, should have the only chance of really going for a number one pick. But
Yeah.
I mean, especially for the teams that would be in the playoffs, they still get to play games, and meanwhile they still have the chance to win the number one pick. But I mean, I don't mind it, but yeah, it's all right, I guess. Yeah.
2020-2021 season will probably have to be delayed. They're going to be delayed, but they're going to have a really short off season, which the Players Association probably won't want. When do you think the NHL should look to return for next season? And how should that season look as well?
Yeah, well, it depends on when they start. I mean, I heard that they're going to start late July, mid or early August. I mean, we don't have a set date really for the NHL when they want to return, because it all depends on the situation with COVID, and plans can change quickly. I think that if they start in August, and I mean, perhaps they would have to go into October, I guess. Maybe they can start in December. I mean, I also heard the NBA would like to, someone, I think, I can't remember who it was, but they said they would like to start the NBA on Christmas if they continue on with the playoffs this season, especially in July or August. But yeah, I think that they can start in December, depending on how many how this season unfolds. If there even is a playoffs, we don't know for sure if that's a thing. This is just a plan. But yeah, I think if they do start in the summer, late July, early August, I think that maybe December or even late November. Yeah, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think next season should look a little bit different. Maybe I think they should be trying to focus on getting the season back to a regular schedule. For other sports, like the NFL, for example, that could easily transition to a summer sport instead of a winter sport, or other sports as well. But I think NHL is one of those sports that probably needs to just be played in the winter. I don't think most people want to go to a hockey game in mid-July, for example. So I think hockey needs to maybe shorten the season next season. So maybe start a bit later, but then play less games. I think, for example, the ECHL, I think they play 72 games instead of 82. So if you could cut a couple weeks off this season and start a little bit later, use that time for preseason, and then sort of get back onto the right schedule, I think that might be the way to go. But also, they might not want to do that because they have contracts with, Rogers, for example, has a huge TV contract. It was $5 billion a few years ago. So they probably don't want to play less games. So we'll just have to wait and see. If you start in November, of course, and then you play 82 games, you'd probably still be done by June or July, and you could then get back on of 2021, and then you get back on schedule for next October. But I don't know if they will prefer to do that over just a shortened season. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think if they do shorten the season, I feel like there will be concerns in regards to the financial situation with players, if they would be getting paid their full salary. So I think that's another situation. Yeah, that's another situation that they would have to deal with.
And speaking of broadcasting, nice little segue there. We are not doing our best insert league here of the decade this week. We're going to do something a little bit different. We have a little discussion question here. Things like DAZN and One Soccer, Matthew, like these streaming services, now the sports are pretty much starting to come back, or starting to hear at least plans for them to come back. Will you be purchasing any of these services or anything like them? Like I said, DAZN or One Soccer or anything like that?
Well, I was gonna say if there was still Premier League on Canadian TV, I should say I might not, but I mean, especially with La Liga or Serie A and Premier League, not really, and you can't really find it on TV, at least in Canada. But I think I might consider buying it, especially with, as I mentioned, not being on Canadian TV. I think also I might want to wait for more things to come back, because I know DAZN has like NHL and NBA games too, if I'm not wrong. So if that comes back like in July or August, I might start buying it around that time. Um, but yeah, I think it depends on like when everything's coming back, and of course we know a lot of soccer leagues in Europe are coming back. We don't know about MLS yet or baseball, but yeah, I think I might start buying it like in July, maybe even August. But yeah, that's what I think. What about you?
I was on the DAZN website yesterday, which sort of sparked the idea for this question. And I was looking at some of the leagues that they have. I didn't really realize how much stuff they had on DAZN. Like they have NFL, Premier League, Champions League, Europa League, Serie A, MLS. Uh, they have the EFL Cup. They have the second division in England. They have women's tennis, darts. Which I love darts, so I'll definitely pay for that. They have KHL hockey. They have a bunch of rugby, MLB. They have boxing. They have everything on DAZN. So I think I'm probably leaning towards getting it at some point. How soon into the future that is, I'm not sure. Maybe when Premier League comes back in a couple of weeks, or I might just wait until the start of the next season. Same with One Soccer. I know One Soccer, whenever the Canadian Premier League starts up again, I'll definitely be getting One Soccer. Or using that again, I should say. I've used it in the past, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I will get it at some point. I'm just not sure when.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, for me, it depends on how many more leagues are coming back soon, like
Yeah,
late in the summer. So I think my decision would be based on what is available when the time comes.
yeah, definitely.
What sports leagues are available?
If I'm not mistaken, on DAZN, and you definitely count on One Soccer. I think on DAZN as well, some games are on demand afterwards as well. So if I can sort of, I'll probably get a free trial, and if I like it, I'll just pay for
Yeah, I think I might be in the same situation
it.
too. But yeah, all right. Well, that about does it for this episode of Off the Sidelines. My name is Matthew Lee Brody.
And I'm Benedict Rhodes.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for watching.